Welcome back to GradX Academy. If you are preparing for the Salesforce Developer interview, then one topic you absolutely cannot skip is Apex testing. In almost every Salesforce interview, you will be asked why test class needed, how to write a proper test class, what is 75% code coverage, what are the best practices that are required for the Apex testing. So this video is about that only. I'm going to cover the most asked Apex testing interview questions with a clear explanation and real interview answer, best practices, and the practical examples also. By the end of the video, you'll feel confident answering any Apex testing interview or interview questions. So let's get started. The first question that mostly interviewers are going to ask is why do we need Apex test class in the Salesforce? So first of all, right, Apex testing is used to validate that our Apex code works correctly and does not break Salesforce functionality. Salesforce requires test classes because Salesforce is a multi-tenant architect. Any faulty code can affect other customers or other functionality. Test class ensures data integrity, security, and stability. That's why Salesforce does not allow deployment of Apex code to production without getting a code coverage or the test coverage. Always mention in the interview about multi-tenant architect because interviewers love this keyword. And explain the multi-tenant architect, right, might be a next question for the interview. So everyone should aware about the Salesforce multi-tenancy and how Salesforce core platform works. The next question in the Apex testing is mostly what is the minimum code coverage required in the Salesforce? So the answer is Salesforce requires at least 75% code coverage to deploy Apex code to the production. Each class or trigger does not need 75% code coverage individually, but overall org's code coverage must be 75%. However, the best practice is each class should have minimum 85 to 90% code coverage so that we should keep 75% code coverage, right, at the org's 75 percent code coverage at the end. Code coverage does not guarantee the bug-free code. It only ensures that line of code are executing properly. The next question in the Apex testing interview is what are the different types of test classes in the Salesforce? So basically, there are two types of test classes. First, test class with is test annotation, and second is test method inside the test class. First is test class with is test annotation used to test Apex logic not counted in the OR code limit. Can access private methods with test visibility. The other is test method inside the test class. Each method test class specifies the scenario. For the specific scenario means uh, what we can say every class has multiple test scenarios or test cases, and for each test case we are going to write separate test method. Interviewer might be also ask you, can we write test method inside the non-test class? The answer is simple no. The test method must be inside the test class only. The next interview question is, what is test annotation? Is-test annotation tells Salesforce that this test class or method is used only for the testing. It is not be deployed in the production logic, or it is not a part of production code, right? It does not count it towards the Apex limits also. For example, uh, we can apply it a class level, right, or method level. Okay. So @istest annotation can be a method level as well as class level. Next is, what is a start test and the test.stop test? Now, this is a very important question, guys. Means if interviewer is having a experience, he will be asking about this only, right? What is test.start test and test.stop test? Now, test.start test and test.stop test are used to reset the governor limits inside the test execution. Basically, the asynchronous Apex functions like future method, queuable Apex, batch Apex, right, are needed to be executed inside at the rate test or sorry, test.start test and test.stop test, right? What key points we should say in the interview? Code before the start test is for the test setup data, right? Code between the start test and stop test is actually a execution where we are going to execute the asynchronous operation. Asynchronous code runs when stop test is called, right? You can only call the start test and stop test once per test method. The next and most important question is, how do we test the triggers in the Salesforce? So trigger is a Apex logic which gets executed before or after DML. So triggers are tested indirectly, not directly. So for that we need to create a test data, and that test data needed to be performed the operation like insert, update, delete, right? After that we need to verify the test logic using the assertion. Most important thing is we never call the trigger explicitly. Salesforce execute it automatically as trigger can get executed before or after DML. The next is, what is a system assertion or system.assert and why it is important? The assertions are used to verify expected result, right? For example, if we wanted to test the actual or the expected, then we can use the assertion method, right? There are three types of assertion method: system.assert, system.assert equals for the positive testing, system.assert not equals for the negative testing. Without assertion, your test only increase the coverage, but with assertion, it will validate our business logic, right? The best practice for the using the test classes with the method of positive test as well as negative test. That means we must use the positive test, that is system.assert equals as well as assert not equals, right? The next question is, what is the test data factory? A test data factory is a reusable class used to create a common test record, avoid duplicate data or duplicate test data code, and improve the maintainability, right? Best benefits of having a test data factory is, we must have the clean test class and centralized test data, and it could be easily updated. So the most important thing in the while using the test data factory is maintain the reusability and maintainability of the test class. The next question is, can we access the real org data in the test class? By default, the answer is no, right? As we all know, test data is different than the actual orgs data. Test classes run in the isolated context, right? To use the real data, use @is test annotation, and inside that we have to see all data true, right? So this annotation is used for getting a data, right, or real data into a test class. But this is not recommended, guys, right? Best practice is always create own test data. Interviewer often ask what is the best practice? The best practice is always create your own test data, always set the test data factory. The last question that is very important is what are the best practices of Apex testing? So these are some best practices that you can say. First is create our own test data. Second is one scenario or one test case for one test method. Third is use meaningful method names. Fourth is use assertions. Fifth is avoid see all data equal to true, means do not use the orgs data, right? Next is cover positive and negative scenarios also, right? And last is test the bulk data also. Minimum 200 records should be there, right? So these are the questions, or we can say that these are the most asked questions in the interview, right? Uh, that is every Salesforce developer must prepare. If you are master in these questions, you will clear the technical round. You will sound confident, right? You will stand out from the other candidate. If you want hands-on Apex practice, real interview scenarios, step-by-step Salesforce development and learning, make sure to hit the subscribe button to the GradX Academy's YouTube channel. Like the video, comment your interview doubts, and subscribe for the more Salesforce content. Thank you. Thank you so much.